This tutorial is for Clue 7 of the Connote pattern by Janica Carter, which is the 2025 year-long Mystery Crochet-Along pattern from Expression Fiber Arts.
Okay, before I start actually demonstrating this clue, I wanted to go over a few things. So first of all, if you didn't watch my Clue 6 video or see my post on the end of Clue 6 on how to work row 11, that's in the post on Ravelry, which is linked down below in the video description. So I confirmed with the designer that when you work this final row of Clue 6, which is the row 111, the single crochet decrease is to be worked into the last stitch, the only stitch remaining in your color E, and then the worked together with the, you're going to insert your hook into the top row of Clue 5, the very last stitch. It's the same one that you worked this, that you inserted your hook to work the last stitch of row 109. So I'm going to do that again here real quick. So when you're working row 111 of Clue 6, you are going to first insert your hook into that one stitch that you've made. That was from row 110. Yarn over and pull up a loop, and then insert your hook into this top of Clue 5 stitch. It's the same one that your last color E stitch is in from row 109. Yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through 3. So that is how you end with row 111. So that's kind of the first thing. The next thing I wanted to talk about is your hook size. So you may have noticed that my hook here is not the same hook I was using when I worked the Clue 6 video. It's actually a size smaller. So in the Dewy DK, I was working with a J hook, which is a 6mm hook, and I went down here to an I hook, which is a 5.5mm hook. And what I actually did is backed out to row 107 and worked this section from row 107 through 111 with the smaller hook size. And there's a reason for that. Clue 6 is worked across 109 stitches of Clue 5. So we have the Clue 5, we work into 109 stitches of Clue 5, but we're working 111 rows. So this last little row that we work, so row 110 and row 111, do have a little bit of a potential to kind of flare out to the left edge on the right side of your work. Okay, so that's part of the reason that I went down a hook size just here at the end, is to just kind of make these last this last 5 rows just slightly narrower than the rest of the piece. All right. Keep in mind that your Clue 6 does kind of want to lean to the left anyway, and so when you go to block out, it should, you are going to need to kind of pull it back to the right anyway. I just wanted to have as little excess on the left edge as possible. But the bigger reason I went down a hook size is because Clue 7 has a greater potential to flare widthwise. That's because beginning with row 7, we're going to be working into the front and back loops of most of our stitches. And when you're only working in through 1 loop instead of 2, the stitch actually expands widthwise. It expands left to right. As you're working into those loops, it gets longer from left to right. And so Clue 7 in itself is going to be wider, which means if you want it to fit in the same, like fill in the square, you know, like make the other triangle to fill in the square, it does need to be worked smaller than you work the stitches in Clue 7, because Clue 7 has stitches that are actually pulling together. So even though we're working in a different direction, so Clue 7 was worked back and forth from top to bottom, but the way these stitches mesh together, they actually pull closer together. And so when you're looking at your project from left to right, I know the camera angle doesn't make it look like left to right, but it doesn't fit that well. So when you're looking at your project from left to right, it has the tendency to, Clue 6 has a tendency to pull in this way, okay? Which is why I recommended a larger hook for Clue 6, is just because these stitches want to pull together. And so if you remember, I suggested that once you get about 4 to 6 rows in, you want to take your wedge and kind of pull it across to make sure that it's going to fit widthwise across your clue 5. Okay, so clue 7 is worked different. So instead of working a long ridge here and then shortening it down and going this back and forth this way, which would cause a whole other problem if we were doing the same stitch type, we're actually working back and forth like this to get back to to create the fill in the square, basically. And because the stitches starting with row 7 of clue 7 are worked into front and back loops, most of the stitches, so you're always going to have 2 half double crochets that are just worked into the edge, but because most of the stitches are worked in that either front or back loop, they are going to want to expand widthwise. And so it is very likely, if you stick with the same hook size that you worked clue 6 with, that your clue 7 is going to start to flare out on this edge and then wrinkle on this edge. It's going to like create a little bump where you work up against clue 6, because those stitches want to go out. They want to flare out. Okay, so I do recommend going down a hook size. I also recommend working between 20 and 30 rows and then laying your project out and making sure that your edges are your clue 7 edges are seeming like they're going to lay straight. Okay, so if you work 30 rows, which my project's shorter here, so it's not going to really correspond, but if you work, you're going to be about here. Okay, if you work 30 rows and your project, your clue 7 edge is already doing this, you still need to change your hook size. Okay, so even if you're working your golden loop shorter than you normally do, I'll also link a tutorial. It's not my tutorial, but there's a tutorial explaining the golden loop. If you've never watched it, it's excellent. Go watch it, understand what the golden loop is. It's not going to change the fact that your stitches are going to want to expand widthwise, because in this case, it's the top of the previous stitch, which has nothing to do with the golden loop. That's the problem. It's not a height problem, it's a width problem. Okay, so just be aware that because we're working into the front and back loops of stitches, it is going to want to flare out, and you may want to go down at least 1 hook size. So that's the second thing. Okay, so the next thing I want to do before I actually work the clue is I want to talk about where you're going to put your half double crochets at the end of every odd numbered row. So starting with row 1, going all the way through row 109, you're going to be placing 2 half double crochets at the end of the row. So row 1, you're just placing the 2 half double crochets. You're skipping a stitch and then placing the 2 half double crochets. But you will eventually have single crochets in either the front or back loop. Well, actually, you'll start with just single crochets. By the time you get to row 7, you're going to have single crochets in the front and back loop across, and then that's what's going to be your wedge. So if you think about, we basically have to fill in this second triangle to create our clue 7. So we're filling in the blank that was created by working clue 6. So we're going to be working back and forth this way, creating a new wedge. So the stitches that we're working over here are not what I'm talking about. The stitches that I'm talking about are the stitches that are worked into the edge of clue 6. So we're going to ignore the wedge part, the wedge that we're working back and forth for a minute. And we're just going to talk about where your stitches go when you're working into this clue 6 edge. So first of all, when you're working, you're actually going to be working on the, when you're doing these half double crochets, you're always going to be on the back of the work, on the wrong side. So we do have to talk about where, when looking at the wrong side, you're going to be placing your stitches. But the reason it's important where you're placing your stitches is because of how it's going to end up looking on the right side. So a few things. There's actually 2 things that you have to consider when you decide where you want to put your half double crochets. And the reason I want to go over this up front is because you need to pick a place and do it consistently all the way through. Otherwise, your join to this, where you're joining at this slope between clue 7 and clue 6, it's going to end up looking really sloppy unless you're always placing your 2 half double crochets in the same spot, basically. Like each time you're making a half double crochet, you're working into the same basic area of the part of the column that you're working into as you did previously. So like I said, there's 2 things that you have to consider. So the first thing is where to start. So you're going to start with 2 half double crochets. You're going to actually work 2 half double crochets at the end of every odd numbered wrong side row. So you're going to start with 2, you're going to end with 2, you're going to work 2 on every single odd numbered wrong side row. And yes, the number will work out. It doesn't make sense if you think about the math that way. Like I'm starting with 2 and I'm working 2 every time, but I'm going to end up with 109 stitches. Yes, because when you work row 3, you're skipping a stitch. And so it's going to end up with basically the first half double crochet that you work is not going to end up being counted as you get further in. That said, you have over on, so again, we're looking at the wrong side of your work. So when you look at this right edge, or the edge where your color E and color F column are the shortest over here, you have a potential for this edge of your piece to kind of flare out. So part of that is because when we got to the end of clue 6, we worked 2 extra rows beyond the number of rows that we worked into clue 5. Clue 5 has 109 stitches across. When we finish clue 7, we also want to have 109 stitches across. But we have a total of 111 columns, plus we've got this chain at the very beginning of clue 6 to deal with. So the first thing you need to decide is when you're placing your very first 2 half double crochets, whether you want to place both of them in this color E column, or if you want to start with one on the left edge of the color E column and the second one on the right side of this color F column. So that's kind of the first decision you need to make. If you start with one here and the second one here, then each time you work the 2 half double crochets at the end of the odd numbered row, your first one is going to be in the left edge of the same color column as your previous pass was worked in, and the second stitch is going to be in the right edge of the next color column. Then when you get all the way over here to the end of, this will be like where you're working rows 107 and 109, when you get to this very end of your piece with the tall edge of the beginning of clue 6, your stitches for 107 are going to go in the end of this color F column and the beginning of this color E column. And then when you work row 109, you're going to have 2 spaces where you can work your final 2 half double crochets. So one of them can go in the middle of this column and the other one can go in the end of this column. If you choose to start with 2 half double crochets in this short color E column over on the right side, then each time you work the 2 half double crochets at the end of the wrong side odd numbered row, they're always going to be at the beginning and end of the same color column all the way across, which means your row 107 stitches are going to go in the beginning and end of this color F column. And then when you get to row 109, you're going to have to figure out whether you want to start with your first half double crochet in the first, like the right edge of this column or in the middle of this column. And then the second stitch needs to go either in the middle of the column or the end of the column, or you have to do some sort of modification to make it work so that you have 2 stitches in this color E column at the end that really needs, it's wider than the rest of them. So you end up with either a gap between the stitches that were in this column and the stitches that go in this column, or you end up with a gap between the legs of the 2 stitches that go in this column. So if you want to do 2 in each column, I do have a workaround for you that I will show you, a modification at the end, so that you can place your first stitch in the right edge of the column, and then actually work the second stitch in such a way that it it both looks like it lands in the right place and pulls that edge straight so it's not sticking out at the end. So that's the first thing, is where you want to start. Do you want to start with 1 in this color E and work a total of 3 in this the color E at the end? Or do you want to start with 2 in this color E and then end up with just 2 in the final color E column? The second thing you need to think about is where in the edge you actually want to place your half double crochets. And so for that, I'm going to kind of have to pull my stitches apart so you can see what I'm talking about. And I am going to give you examples so you can see what it looks like. I just wanted to cover both of the things you need to think about before showing you the example so it doesn't get confusing. So we're going to look here at my color F here where I've got my color E tail kind of coming out. All right, so we're going to look at this little section right here, and I'm going to try to keep it pulled out. It's going to be a little difficult because I can't keep it pulled out and point. But so if you look at the right edge of the column over here, I really can't do that and point, can I? I guess I should have pulled it out onto a blocking mat or something. All right, so if you, tell you what, I'll take a picture and put a pointer on there. All right, so if I pull it out here, and if you look at the right side of this column here, there's really only one place that you can put your stitch, and that's kind of under this bulk of, it's basically the last stitch and the color change at the edge, at the right edge of the column. That's really the best place to place your hook to make that half double crochet, is just under that first stitch on the right edge. So that's really not, you don't have to worry about where am I going to place it. Just make sure that you're getting under the whole bulk of that stitch. So you do want to kind of like, as you go, pull your stitches out, your edge out, and make sure you're getting your stitch just underneath that first stitch and not coming down underneath that second stitch. Okay. It's this left edge that can be a little confusing, because on the left edge at the top, we have a little hole, and that's basically under the chain, like the chain 1 at the end of the row, that we do the chain 1 and turn and then work back this way at the end of clue 6, or when we were working clue 6. So it's under the chain, and then it'll probably also be under the yarn that you carried up from the previous row. So the carried yarn and the chain, basically, and depending on how you get your hook in there, you may not even catch that carried yarn. So you want to have to be careful to either always catch the carried yarn or never catch the carried yarn. I would recommend always catch the carried yarn, just so that you don't end up with that long loop on the edge. Okay. So you can put that stitch there, that half double crochet there, or you can come down and put it between the first actual stitch and the second actual stitch in the column. So if it comes down lower, if you don't go under that carried yarn, it's going to end up coming down lower. Okay. So again, you just want to be consistent about where you're placing your stitch each time. The hardest one is going to be in this color E column because of the way that it's worked here at the edge. There's so much bulk in this beginning stitch, it seems huge. So the right edge of this color E column, if you're working 2 stitches into this column, it's going to feel like you're placing it really low, but that's actually where that's going to go. You just kind of pull everything out and then find the actual hole on the right edge if you're going to put 2 stitches in this color E column. But then on the left edge of the color E column, it's much easier to see where this hole is up at the top underneath the chain and the carried color, and then underneath. So because we don't have a first stitch and a second stitch, it's just under the first stitch, and actually the top of clue 5 is where you would go if you're not putting it underneath just the chain and the carried color. So now that I've kind of explained where the options are, let's look at what it actually looks like for you to do. So I have 4 examples here, and I'm going to show you first what it's going to look like, the two options if you were starting with 2 stitches in that first color E column. All right, so let me get these spread out for you here. And again, I'm showing you from the front because that's where it matters. Like where you place your stitches, it's not going to matter really from the back what it looks like. It's going to matter what it looks like on the front. Okay, so my example here on the left, I have 2 stitches in my color E column, and then, or my 2 half double crochets in color E, and then every set of half double crochets after that is worked in the beginning and end of the same color column. So you can see when you come up here, got to get several rows in before you actually get the other color, but you can see what it does is it kind of pushes the legs of the same color, the half double crochet. There's a clear gap between those, and then the other color, so my color G, my second half double crochet that comes down here into the edge of my color F column, those legs are right up next to the color F legs that are coming into my color E column, right next to that. Okay, so this is my swatch that's worked with just the legs going over the, working the half double crochet just underneath the chain and the carried color each time. Okay, so this is the same, starting with two half double crochets in color E, but then my second half double crochet is worked here, not under the chain and the carried color, but under the first stitch on the, so it would be, again, because you're working this from the back, it's a little confusing to try to explain. But for instance, right here, these 2 stitches are both worked into this color F column. The first one is worked where it would naturally go, where it makes sense to go, but the second one is worked not under the chain and the carried color, but between the first and second stitch. So that's this stitch right here. And so if you're working, basically you should be able to see the legs if you're working between the first and second stitch, that second half double crochet in between the first and second stitch and not under the chain and the carried color, those legs end up being a little bit longer, and it's almost like they feel like they have to go around the stitch on the clue 6 edge here. Okay, so these legs kind of jog to the right each time, whereas these lay a little bit straighter. It's just that the color, the same color half double crochets do get a lot of separation between them. Okay, so that's what it looks like if you work. So left, my left example here, example on the left is starting with 2 half double crochets in this color E column. So on the right, when you're working from the back, the right and the left side of that color E column, and then each set of 2 half double crochets are always worked in the beginning and end of the same color column each time, all the way across. And then this one is with the second half double crochet just going under the chain and the carried color, and this one is with the second half double crochet going between the first and second stitch. So I'm going to kind of put those out of the way for a minute. I'll bring them back and show you all 4 in just a minute. So my second example here is what it looks like if you start with your first half double crochet going into the left edge of this color E column. So you're only working 1 half double crochet in this color E column, and then your second half double crochet is going into the right edge of color F, and then each time you're working the first one in the left edge of the color column that you worked in the last pass, and then the right edge of the next color column. So you can see that my stitches here, the same colored stitches are kind of right next to each other, and then there's a bigger gap between the color F stitches and the color G stitches each time. So there's a, it's almost like the, I don't know if you can see that really well, but where it comes down into the fabric, it makes a gap between the color columns of, or the rows. It's kind of, it's weird because it's like columns where it comes up from clue 6 and then it kind of jets over to be a row for clue 7. But you can see that the gap between each 2 row section falls between the colors. Okay, whereas when you start with 2 stitches in the first color E column, those gaps you've got the gap here, but then you also have a gap here between the same color yarn, the legs of the same color stitch, I guess. Okay. So this is what it looks like when you're starting with just one half double crochet in color E, and then the second one is going into your color F column, and then you're basically working one in the left side of the current color column and one in the right side of the next color column. And then my second half double crochet each time is worked into underneath the first stitch of the row, instead of like between the first and second stitch, instead of this one, which is actually the way I'm going to be demonstrating it. So keep that in mind, where the legs of my half double crochets are just worked under the chain and the carried color each time. So this is also with just one stitch in color E, but then my second half double crochet is always worked under the chain and carried color. Sorry, I should say the second half double crochet of each color column is worked under the chain and the carried color. So again, if you look at the back of the work here, I hope this all makes sense. It feels like it's so much. So if you're starting with just one stitch in, or one half double crochet in your color E column, then the first stitch you make is going to go under either the chain and the carried color or under the entire first stitch of color E here. So when you get up further, it's always going to be the first half double crochet that's either under a carried color and the chain or between the first and second stitch here. So in this case, it's under the chain only and not the first and second stitch. And in this case, it is under the first and second stitch. Okay, so again, the ones that are worked into the first and second stitch, the chain or the half double crochet legs are a little bit longer. But then you do still have kind of the separation between the colors where the gap here is more prominent, I guess. So let me see if I can get all 4 of these examples on the screen for you. So those 2 are with just one half double crochet in the first color E column. So the other thing I'm going to point out here, if I can get all my tails out of the way so it's more obvious, is that if you start with 2 half double crochets in that first color E column, you're goodness, that does not want to get out of the way. Hang on. All right. You're going to have a lot more flare over here on this left edge than you would have if you're just working one half double crochet in that column. So seeing what my sample, what I'm actually going to be doing, you can tell I prefer starting with one half double crochet in the first color E column, and then when you get to the far edge with the long color E column, you'll end up with 3 half double crochets over here. And I will explain how I do that when I get there. But let me put this last example on. Let's see if I can put these all in the same. Sorry for all the tails. I just didn't want to weave a bunch of tails in on these samples. So I was being lazy. All right. So both of these are 2 half double crochets in the first color E column, and then 2 half double crochets in each column thereafter. And the one on the left, the half double crochet is just worked under the chain on the left side, chain and carried color on the left side of each column. And on the right, it's worked between the first and second stitch of each column. And then my bottom examples here, I start with just one half double crochet in the color E column, and then one on the left side of the current color column and one on the right side of each of the next color column each time I work the next 2 half double crochets. And the one on the left here shows working the second, or the half double crochet that's on the left side of the column is going around or going between the first and second stitch, and on the right over here it's just going under the chain and the carried color. So I hope that helps you decide what's going to work best for you. Whatever you like the best, the way that it looks, I would go with that. I kind of wish I had like the actual, just seemed like it was easier to demonstrate this and show you guys in the Dewy DK, so I don't have this in the CashSilk Sock, where it will look a little bit less bulky just because it's a thinner yarn. But basically you are still going to get, either you're going to have a short leg and a long leg where you've worked the half double crochet on the left side of each color column into between the first and second stitch, or you're going to have basically even legs. It is still a little bit longer, but it's not significantly longer when you just work around the chain and the carried color. And then you need to decide whether you want to start with 2 half double crochets in the color E column and just work 2 in each column at the end of each row, or if you want to start with 1 in the color E and then 1 on the right side of color F, and then always work the left side of that column and the right side of the next column each time you get to the 2 half double crochets. All right, so at the end of clue 6, we work this row that is on the right side going back this way. So when we start clue 7, we're going to start with a chain 1 and turn to the back of the work. And then row 1, we are just going to skip this first stitch. So this first column in your current color is what you're skipping. And then you're going to work a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, or the ends of the previous rows from clue 6. So as I said, my first stitch is going to go into my color E column here, so kind of the left edge of that, and then my second stitch is going to go into the beginning of my next color F column. But if you want to do 2 stitches in each column all the way across, you want to do 2 stitches in this color E column. All right, so just 2 half double crochets, and then at the end of the row, so for row 2, chain 1, turn back to the front, and then work a single crochet in each stitch across, which is just those 2 stitches. All right, and that's what you should have after you've worked row 2. So row 3, chain 1, turn to the back, and here we're going to skip the first stitch and we're going to single crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to work 2 more half double crochets in the edge of the clue 6 rows. So again, if you are working 2 in each column, you're going to have 2 stitches in your color F column, but because I am working slightly offset from that, my first stitch is going to be in my color F column, and then my next stitch is going to be in color E. Okay, so that is the end of row 3. Row 4, chain 1, turn back to the front, and you're just going to single crochet back across. 1, 2, 3. And that is the end of row 4. Row 5, chain 1, turn to the back, I'm going to single crochet in each stitch across. So 1, 2, and 3, and then 2 more half double crochets in the edge of clue 6. 1 and 2. All right, so that is the end of row 5. I guess the other thing that I should have mentioned is that your row numbers and the number of stitches you have should always be the same when you're on an odd numbered row or on the wrong side of the work. And when you're on the right side of the work or working an even numbered row, it's always going to be this, you should have the same number of stitches on the even numbered rows as the previous row number. So for row 6, I'm going to chain 1, turn to the front, and again, I'm just going to work a single crochet in each stitch back to the beginning, but then I'm going to switch to my color G at the end of the row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to bring in my next color, I'm going to insert my hook into this last stitch, and I'm going to grab my color G, and I'm just going to drape my yarn over my hook so that the tail is coming to my right, which it is not. And I'm going to yarn over and pull under with my old color, and that's just going to trap my color in there, and then I will drop my color F and pick up my color G to do this final yarn over, pull through 2, maybe. Sorry. All right, so with that is the end of row 6, and your color G should be on your hook. So you can see already how there's a little bit of a jog over to the edge of my clue 7. I should be able to, with very little effort, get my edges straight to all the way down to clue 5. Okay, so if you're finding that it's pulling all the way over here and you can't get your clue 5 to straighten out with that, go back right now, decrease your hook size, and try again. And again, if it's still sticking out, I would recommend going back to row 107, starting at the beginning of row 107 of your clue 6 and working from there with the smaller hook size to the end of clue 6, and then starting again. Okay. All right. So row 7, chain 1, and turn to the back. Now, starting with row 7, we have our pattern repeat for basically the entire rest of the pattern. So it's a 4-row repeat. The only reason it's really a 4-row repeat as opposed to a 2-row repeat is just because it has the color change instructions at the end of each even numbered row. But you're basically doing the same thing every time you work a right side row and a wrong side row. So when you're on a wrong side row, which is always going to be, oops, I'm gonna, sorry. Let me make sure I have an adequate tail for my color G here, which I did not. All right, sorry. So every time you're on a wrong side row, which is an odd numbered row, you are going to do the following. You are going to work a single crochet in the front loop and then alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across. We're going to differentiate here between our wedge. So this is, we're making our wedge. That's the part that fills in here. And then 2 half double crochets into your edge. So single crochets in the front and back loops all the way across your wedge, and then 2 half double crochets in your edge. That is a wrong side odd numbered row every single time. You're always going to start with a single crochet in the front loop and then alternate front, back, front, back, front, back, front. You should always end on a front. So if you don't, you have the wrong number of stitches in your previous row. So single crochet across the wedge in the front, back, front, back, front, back, front loops, and then half double crochet into the next 2 stitches on your edge. That's how you work a wrong side odd numbered row. On the even numbered row, you're just going to do chain 1, turn to the front, and then you're going to begin with a single crochet in the back loop and then alternate front, back, front, back, front, back, front, back, all the way to the end. You should end also on a back loop. And if you don't, then you have the previous row has the wrong number of stitches and you need to back up. Okay. At the end of every even numbered row, you're going to switch to the other color. So that is the pattern repeat all the way across. I am going to work rows 7 through 10 twice here. So that was 7. I'm going to start with 7, and then I'll work 8, 9, and 10, and then I'll repeat again for the basically my 11 through 14. But it's just a repeat of row 7 through 10, and then I'm going to jump all the way up to the end of row 108. Okay, so row 7, you're going to start with a single crochet in the front loop. So this is going to be kind of the hardest stitch to get into because once you do your chain 1 and you turn, this stitch is going to want to pull over the first stitch. So you want to make sure you're getting all the way into this first stitch to do that first single crochet in the front loop. And then you're just going to alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across your wedge until you get to the end of the wedge, which is going to have 2 stitches fewer than your current row number. So if I'm on row 7, I should have a total of 5, and I should always end with a single crochet in the front loop. And then after you've done the single crochets across the wedge, you're going to do 2 half double crochets into the next 2 stitches on your edge. So for me, that is 1 in my color E column, or my color F column, and 1 in my next color E column. And if you're doing it the opposite of me, if you're doing 2 stitches in each column all the way across, then it would be 2 stitches in your next color F column. So that is what it should look like at the end of row 7. All right, row 8, chain 1, turn to the front, and then so all your right side even numbered rows are going to start with a single crochet in the back loop, and then you're just going to alternate. So single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, all the way across, changing to your color F at the end of the row. And when you get to this last stitch, which should be in the back loop, if you want to carry your color up, so I insert my hook, I grab my color F and drape it over my hook from right to left, yarn over with my color G and pull through that, pull that loop in, and then drop my color G, pick up my color F, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is what it should look like when you are at the end of row 8. Row 9, chain 1, turn to the back. So again, this is an odd numbered wrong side row. We begin with a single crochet in the front loop of the first stitch, and then we alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across the wedge, back, front, back, front. And when you finish the single crochets in the wedge, you're going to do a half double crochet into each of the next 2 edges on your clue 6. So mine's going to go into the left side of my color E, and then the right side of my next color F. And if you're doing it the opposite, then you should have 2 in your color E.
So that is the end of row 9. Row 10,
chain 1, turn to the front. And because we're working an even numbered front side row, we are going to start with a single crochet in the back loop and then just alternate single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, all the way across, front, back, front, back, front. Oops, it's not the front, it's both. And then you should end on a back single crochet in the back loop, and at the same time you want to switch back to your color G. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, yarn over with my color G, and then bring my color G over the hook from right to left, yarn over with my color F and pull through a loop, and then drop my color F, pick up my color G, and yarn over, pull through 2. And all that's doing is it's just helping carry my yarn up the edge in a less visible manner. So if you haven't, I think I probably demonstrated that most clearly in the Clue 2 video. I think I have a whole section in the Clue 2 video, which I'll link in the video description below. But in that Clue 2 video, actually link directly to the timestamp of that, I do go into pretty significant depth on how to carry your color this way so that it's less visible. So if you look at my, for instance, my Clue 3, the edge of my Clue 3, it's not very easy to tell where I've carried my color, or it's less visible where I've carried my color, and that's because it draws this loop over to the inside edge across the color that it was already on, and just barely comes up over the next color, whereas instead of having a big long loop on the outside edge, which is how when you typically carry your colors, your carried color ends up. Okay, so this is what it should look like at the end of row 10. And then you're just going to repeat rows 7 through 10 over and over and over again, all the way until you get to so 7 through 10 through row 106, and then you're going to repeat rows 7 and 8 for rows 107 and 108. And that's just so you end on the correct color. So I'm going to do row 7 again, chain 1, turn to the back of the work, and then you're going to begin with a single crochet in the front loop. So this is row 7 repeat, single crochet and you're just going to alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop. Just going to do this all the way across to the end of your wedge, back, front, back, and front. And then when you've gotten to the end of your wedge, you're going to do a half double crochet in each of the next 2 edges on your Clue 6. So 1 and 2. And that is what you should have at the end of a row 7 repeat, or row 11. All right, row 12 or row 8 repeat, chain 1 and turn to the front, and then you're going to begin with a single crochet in the back loop, and then alternate single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop. You're going to do this all the way across, switching back to color F at the last stitch. Back, front, back, front, back, front. And on these even numbered right side rows, you should always begin and end by doing the single crochet into the back loop. And again, I'm just going to carry my yarn here. And switch to my color F at the end of the row. So that is the end of a row 8 repeat. Row 9, chain 1, turn to the back, start with a single crochet in the front loop, and then alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across the wedge. You should be ending on a single crochet in the front loop when you do this. back, front, back, front, back, front, and then a half double crochet in each of the next two edges of your clue 6. 1 and 2. That is the end of a row 9 repeat. Row 10, chain 1, turn to the front. You're going to begin with a single crochet in the back loop, and then alternate single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, all the way across to the beginning of the row, or the end of the row, whichever you want to call it, at which point your last stitch, you're going to switch back to your color G. Front, back, front, back, front, back, front, and the last stitch on a right side even numbered row should always go into the back loop, and you're going to switch to your other color at the end of the row. So that's what you should have after you've worked a row 10 repeat. All right, so you're just going to continue that, and I will pick it up at the end of row 108. So remember, you're repeating row 7 through 10, and then when you are to the end of row 106, you're going to repeat rows 7 and 8 one more time. So you're actually going to have just switched to your color F yarn at the end of row 108, and I will pick it up there, and we'll work rows 109 through 111 together. I know I told you at the end of demonstrating the beginning of this that I was going to meet you at the end of row 108, but I'm realizing now that row 109 is worked exactly the same as all the other wrong side odd numbered rows, which is you start with a, at the end of row 108, you're just going to switch back to your color F, chain 1, turn to the back of the work, and then you're going to work a single crochet in the front loop, and then alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across your wedge. And then when you get to the end of the wedge, you're just going to work your final 2 half double crochets in your edge. And so as I mentioned, where you begin your first 2 half double crochets on the right edge, like when you're looking at the wrong side of the work and you're on the right edge of that, if you did 2 half double crochets over here in this first color E column, then your last 2 stitches are going to go into color F, and you're not going to have this stitch right here. So your final row 107 stitch is actually going to be this one. And so you're going to have to determine whether you want to put 1 stitch here and then 1 stitch kind of in this middle, or if you want to put 1 stitch in the middle and 1 stitch in the final left edge. If, like me, you started with just 1 half double crochet in the color E column on the right edge, and then your second half double crochet of row 1 was in the in the right edge of color F, this color F column, then you will have placed your final color G half double crochet in that very right edge of your color E column over here. And so your final 2 half double crochets would go in the center, so you kind of have to pull your column apart to make sure that you're in that center stitch. So I'm going to do that half double crochet here. Now, one of the things that I've found is this chain stitch right here on the edge. In order to get it to stay straight, my best I'm going to say to get it to stay straight and to actually look like a half double crochet on this edge, what I found works best is to go ahead and do the yarn over the hook like you're making a regular half double crochet, but then come into that stitch from, like, go behind it. So you're going to actually the front of the work, like the right side, but then you're coming in from back to front through that stitch, and then go back out from front to back just below that. So you're basically going in that top chain and then coming out one chain below that. All right. Yarn over your hook and just pull that through, and then do the yarn over, pull through 3. And so what it's going to do is it's going to pull that chain a little bit taller and not let it slump at that edge. Okay. So that would be my recommendation for how to work those final 2 half double crochets in that color E edge. And again, if you started with, so if you started, it's not going to make sense just the way I'm doing it here, but for the purpose of demonstration at least, let's say that if you started with your 2 half double crochets, both in this color E column on the right end of, when you're looking at the wrong side of the work, the right edge. If you had 2 over here and you've just been working 2 half double crochets in each color column across, then your final 2, your first one needs to go here on the right edge. So I'm going to just put it here where my color G half double crochet is. So if you have that first half double crochet there, here's my recommendation. Treat this middle and end almost like a post stitch. All right, so go ahead and do the yarn over, and then come in from the back into that center space, and then out through the left space, so almost like you're going around this as a post, and just pull your yarn over through that, and then yarn over, pull through 3 there. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to make it look more like a half double crochet on the front, and kind of bring that spacing a little bit closer to itself on the right edge. Okay, so again, it's not going to look exactly like this because you're not going to have this where my gray stitch is, that's not going to be there. So it's just going to be these 2 stitches here. But if you try to do just the 1 stitch here on this edge, if you go in through the center, if you do a half double crochet here, you're going to have this whole piece hanging out over here. If you try to go and do the half double crochet on the far edge, sorry, didn't get in that right. It's going to be spaced out weirdly. And it's not really going to look right on the front either. It's going to have it's going to like be pulling across that and kind of fold it over. Okay. So that would be my recommendation, is if you started with 2 in your color E column on the right, then make your first half double crochet on the very right side of this color E column, and then treat this like you're working a back post. So yarn over your hook, come in through the back in that middle section, and then out through the front on the left, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 3 there. Okay, that is my recommendation. After that, you're going to work row 110, just the way that you've been working all of your other right side even numbered rows, which is you're going to start with a chain 1, turn to the front, and then single crochet in the back loop, and then alternate single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, all the way across to the end. And when you get to the end of row 110, you want to make sure that you have your most recent pattern update, because Janica did just make a change. This video is coming to you the last day of July, first day of August kind of time frame. And the update is that your final wrong side odd numbered row should be worked like every other odd numbered row that you've had so far, which is you're going to start with the single crochet in the front loop, and then alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across to the end. Okay. And that's with your color G. So you're going to switch back to your color G at the end of row 110, cut your color F at that point, and just work row 111 with your color G. And I'm not going to demonstrate all that because you can do all that without me. So that is, that's it. I hope that helps, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so clue 7 on the CashSilk Sock just to reiterate, if you want my full explanations, go back to the beginning of the video and watch the full introduction to the Dewy DK version. But I'm just going to remind you, I am working with a smaller hook size than I worked clue 6. I actually backed out to row 107 of clue 6 and worked starting from row 107 with the smaller hook size. And let's see what else. So I am going to be working, when I do my half double crochets, which are all worked on the wrong side of the row, or the wrong side of the work, I'm going to be placing my first half double crochet in the color E row, and then I'm going to be placing 2 half double crochets in each of the color columns. So because of the way I'm doing it, it's going to end up with 1 in the end of the current color column and 1 with the beginning of the next color column, and 3 in the final. So at the very end, my last 2 stitches, my two rows back, I'm going to be in the end of my color F and beginning of my final color E color column, and then the last 2 stitches are both going to be into the color E column. Okay. And I'm going to be working my half double crochets. It's really hard to see on the CashSilk Sock because it's so small, but I'm going to be working them into basically under the first stitch on the right side of the column, and then just under the chain 1 and carried color on the left side, and not between the first and second stitches. And I put up pictures. Again, you can go back to the beginning of the Dewy DK version and look. I put up pictures showing what it's going to look like to work into either one of those places. So you need to decide where you want to put your half double crochets before you start so that you're consistent. Okay. So clue 7 begins on, we've just finished a right side row, so we're going to start with a chain 1, and then our row 1 starts on the wrong side, which we haven't done since clue 1. Usually our odd numbered rows are on the right side of the work, and for this clue, the odd numbered rows are going to be on the wrong side. So we're going to skip this first stitch, which is our color F. So anything worked in color F, we're going to be skipping. So we're working our half double crochets into the top edge of clue 6. So we're going to work 2 half double crochets. My first one is going to go kind of in the left edge of this color E space. So let's see. Again, I'm just placing my half double crochets not between the first and second stitch, but up here underneath the chain 1 and the carried color. So that's where my first one is going to go. If you want to do 2 in that column, in that color E column, then your first one would go underneath the first stitch of that right side of the column. So I'm doing the left side of the column and then the right side of my next color F column. So 2 half double crochets in the edge of clue 6, and that is the end of row 1. Row 2, chain 1, turn to the front, and you're just going to work a single crochet into each stitch back across. 1 and 2. All right, so that's the end of row 2. Row 3, chain 1, turn to the back of the work. We're going to skip the first stitch and work a single crochet in the next stitch. Hopefully getting through the entirety of the stitch. It's like my hook knows these single crochet in the front or back loop are coming up. All right, so single crochet in that first stitch, and then a half double crochet into each of the next 2 edges on your clue 6. 1, 2. And that is the end of row 3. So from this row out, your odd numbered wrong side rows, you should have the same number of stitches in that row as the row number. So row 3 has 3 stitches, row 5 has 5 stitches, row 7 has 7 stitches, row 9 has 9 stitches, and so on. Your even numbered rows are going to have the same number of stitches as the previous odd number row. So row 4, chain 1, turn to the front, and then you're just going to single crochet in each stitch back across. So you should have 3 stitches here. 1, 2, All right, so that's what you should have at the end of row 4. Row 5, chain 1, turn to the back, single crochet in each stitch across. So we're going to differentiate between working in the wedge, that's this triangle that we're making over here, and the edge, which are the stitches that we're working into clue 6. So you're going to single crochet in each stitch on the wedge, which will always be 2 fewer stitches than your current row number. And then you're going to work a half double crochet into each of the next 2 spaces on your edge, on the edge of clue 6. So 1. You can see each time before I make this stitch, I'm pulling out the space here. So I'm checking to make sure that I'm not going into the wrong area. So when I'm doing this, I'm working into the right side. When you work the stitch into the right side of a color column, you basically want to go into the first hole down that you can see, okay? So that's always going to go there. It's just the stitch on the left side of the color column, you need to decide if you want it to go up here in this first hole, which is just under the chain and the carried color, or if you want it to come down and go between the first and second stitches. So I'm doing mine underneath the carried color in the chain each time, but that is totally up to you. All right, so I'm just kind of pulling my work apart here to make sure I'm getting my half double crochet into the correct space each time. And it'll make for a more uniform edge. All right, so that is the end of row 5. And then row 6, we're going to chain 1. We're going to work back across, single crocheting in each stitch, and we're going to switch to our color G at the end of this row. 2, 3, 4, and then in this last stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, and then I'm going to grab my color G, and I'm actually going to drape it over the hook so the tail is to my right and the working yarn is to my left. Then I'm going to yarn over with my color F and pull through that loop, and I'm going to drop my color F and pick up my color G and yarn over and pull through 2. So all that's doing basically is just it's catching my color G before I work the first loop so that I don't have a big floppy loop at that row. All right, so it's just kind of cinching my color G behind the work back here. So you can see where I draped the yarn over my hook and then just did the yarn over and pull through with the other color. It caught the tail of my color G back here behind the work a little bit. And so that just makes it a little bit more of a secure loop, so it's not flopping around and getting big and unusable as I'm working with it. All right, so row 7, we start with the chain 1, and row 7 begins our pattern repeat for the entirety of this pattern, so all the way until we get to basically row 111. So the last row is worked a little bit differently, but we're going to be working rows 7 through 110, basically exactly the same all the way through. 4 rows work the same way, and technically it's just a 2-row repeat. So you're doing the same thing on the wrong side and the same thing on the right side every time. It's just it's written as a 4-row repeat because you have the color change to one color at the end of row 8 and then the color change to the other color at the end of row 10. But if you're just thinking of it as I'm changing colors at the end of the row every time you get to the end of an even numbered right side row, then it's just 2 rows that you have to memorize. So, and it's a really easy repeat. So every wrong side odd numbered row starts with so chain 1, turn to the back, and then you're going to work a single crochet in the front loop, and then alternate single crochet in the back loop. Goodness. Single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across your wedge, and then 2 half double crochets in your edge. So half double crochet wherever your next one goes, whether it's in the beginning of a color column or the end of a color column, and then the second one goes in the alternate. So if you started with the end of a color column, it goes in the beginning of the next one. If you started with the beginning of the color column, it goes in the end of that one. All right, so 2 half double crochets at the end, and then that is the end of a row 7, or a right side or wrong side odd numbered row, is the single crochets alternating front, back, front, back, front, back, front, always beginning and ending on a front when you're on the wrong side, and then 2 half double crochets in the edge of clue 6. And then your row 8, or a right side even numbered row, is worked the same every single time, which is start with a single crochet in the back loop, and then alternate single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop. You're going to do this all the way across, and you should end with a single crochet in the back loop and switch. When you work that single crochet in the back loop, you're going to switch to your other color. So at the end of a row 8, I'll be switching back. Sorry, I realize I'm going out of frame. All right, so ending with a single crochet in the back loop and switching to back to your color F. So when I do this, I insert my hook into the loop, yarn over from right to left with my color that I'm getting ready to switch to, and then do a yarn over pull through with the old color, drop the old color, pick up the new color, yarn over pull through too. As I mentioned in the Dewy DK version, I have a longer tutorial on how I carry my colors this way. It's linked in the video description below. All right, so that is the end of a row 8. So row 9, chain 1, turn to the back again. So this is a wrong side odd numbered row. You're going to start with a single crochet in the front loop. You want to make sure you're getting into the very first stitch when you do this, which can be kind of hard because that stitch wants to kind of pull, your current stitch wants to pull over that. So then you're going to alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across. So you should begin and end every odd numbered wrong side row in the front loop, and end every odd numbered wrong side row by working into the front loop of your wedge. Just the front loop. There we go. And then once you've done that, worked across your wedge, front, back, front, back, front, back, front, you're going to do 2 half double crochets into your edge. 1, 2. And that is the end of row 9. Row 10, chain 1, turn to the front. This is a even numbered right side row, so we're going to start with a single crochet in the back loop, and then we're going to work a single crochet in the front loop, and then a single crochet in the back loop. We're just going to alternate all the way across, front, back, front, back, front, All right. If you want to make sure you're on track, you should have the same number of stitches across as when you're at the end of an even numbered right side row. Your number of stitches should be the same as the previous wrong side row or previous odd numbered row. Okay. So if you just finished up row 10, you should have a total of 9 stitches across. If you just finished up row 50, you should have 49 stitches across. If you just finished up row 84, you should have 83 stitches across. And you're just going to repeat rows 7 through 10 all the way across until you are, so technically it says to repeat rows 7 through 10 until you get to row 106, and then you're going to repeat rows 7 and 8 again. But technically rows 109 and 10 are also worked the exact same way as you worked rows 9 and 10 at the beginning. So I am actually going to meet you at the end of row 108. We're just going to work rows 109 through 111 together. Okay, so at the, I know I said I was going to meet you at the end of row 108, but actually row 109 is worked exactly like all of the other odd numbered wrong side rows, which are you're going to switch back to your color F at the end of row 108. You're going to do a chain 1, turn to the back, and then row 109 you're going to be working single crochet in the front loop and then alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across your wedge. So that color that clue 7 wedge, which is pretty much on the entire width of the project at this point. And then when you get to the end of the wedge, you're going to have 2 half double crochets. So where your final 2 half double crochets go is going to depend on what you chose to do all the way back here when you did your first 2 half double crochets at the very beginning in row 1. So if you put 2 half double crochets in this color E column, then you're going to have a space basically between your last half double crochet is actually going to be right here and not right here, because you would have put 2 in each color column all the way across. And now you're going to have to put 2 in this final color E column, even though it's really got 3 spaces to do it. Hopefully you can see this. I keep going off camera. If you started with 1 half double crochet in the right side, so we're looking at the back of the work again, we're on the wrong side of the work. So on this right edge, this short color E column at the very beginning where you would have started row 1, if you only worked 1 half double crochet in this column and then put your second half double crochet in the beginning of this color F column, then you will be working with me when you get over here. If you started with 2 half double crochets in this color E column, so one on the right edge and one on the left edge, and then as you worked each wrong side odd numbered row across, you were putting 2 half double crochets in each color. So each time you get to the end of the row, you're putting one in the right edge and one on the left edge of the same color column. Then when you get over here, you're going to be at a slightly different place. So you can see that at the end of my row 107 here on my swatch, that my first stitch is going into this color F column, and then the left, the second half double crochet is on the right side of this color E column. So for you, if you started with 2 over here and you've just been working 2 in each color column each time you get to the end of a row, then you're going to need to put 2 half double crochets in this column. So the first one I would recommend going ahead and being right here where my color G is, but working a half double crochet here, and then so I guess I'll demonstrate that first. So if you started with 2 in the same color E column on the right side, then to work the last row for row 109, I would recommend your first half double crochet actually go on the right edge of this color E. So the very far right edge, which is actually where my color G is, but ignore that. So one right here. And then I would recommend that instead of picking to either go, so if you kind of pull this apart, this is your row 1 and this is your chain from clue 6. Instead of going in either here or here, I would treat this like you're working a back post stitch. So do your yarn over, come in behind from back to front in that center space, and then go back out from front to back on that left space, and then yarn over and pull that through, and then yarn over, pull through 3. And that's just going to secure that column so that the edge of that is coming up straight to the top of the half double crochet, instead of, so if you pick one or the other, you're either going to have a little flap here. If you pick the middle, if you make your half double crochet here, then you're going to have a flap where the chain wasn't worked. If you pick here, it's actually going to fold it over in a weird way and make that center where it wasn't worked kind of poke out. And so this will kind of eliminate either one of those problems if you just work that like it's a back post stitch. Okay, that would be my recommendation. So if you've worked the way that I worked it, here is how I'm going to work this final stitch. So first I'm going to put my first half double crochet of the row in this, what's basically the center of this column of color E. But then I'm not just going to work in this stitch right here, because this is a chain. It's going to want to stretch out. If I work into that, it's going to want to stretch really tall. So instead, I'm going to come in from back to front into that, and then I'm going to go over the stitch or the bar that's just below that and come back out from front to back in the second stitch. So in that second, so I'm going to come from back to front in this top, and then go from front to back through this second chain. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to pull my yarn back through, and then make that final half double crochet that way. So first one's just going to be normal. It's going to be in this center space. And then just to secure this edge so it doesn't pull weird, I'm going to yarn over my hook. I'm going to come from back to front in that first chain, and then go over the edge and in from front to back over that second chain. And I'm just going to yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 3. And so that's going to kind of pull that half double crochet into that chain without pulling that chain, that final chain. It's going to keep it from pulling too tall. Okay. So from there, finishing out the clue is really simple. You're going to work row 110 the exact same way you've worked all of your other right side even numbered rows. So chain 1, turn to the front, start with a single crochet in the back loop, and then you're just going to alternate single crochet in the front loop, single crochet in the back loop, all the way across to the end, where you're going to switch back to your color G. And then make sure you have the latest pattern download. I'm talking like end of July 2025 pattern download, because it just got fixed. Because row 111 is actually just supposed to be worked exactly like you've worked all of your other odd numbered wrong side rows, which you start with a single crochet in the front loop, and then alternate single crochet in the back loop, single crochet in the front loop, all the way across to the end with your color G. And that's it. So if you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, I will see you for clue 8, and happy crocheting.